Good Monday morning to you from Telesur Studios here in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Regan Devines. Thank you so much for being here with us on From the South. All eyes are on Quito, the Ecuadorian capital, where shortly the presidents of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, will be meeting to discuss the border crisis between both countries. The meeting will be mediated by Uruguay's president, Tabaré Vázquez, and Ecuador's head of state, Rafael Correa. Santos said he was going to the meeting with best intentions but low expectations. In contrast, Maduro expressed optimism and said he was ready to sign a peace pact with Colombia. Of course, this all deals with the threat to Venezuela by Colombian paramilitaries who have been smuggling subsidized food across the border, as well as medical supplies and gasoline.
We have worked very hard this week. I am taking concrete proposals to the meeting, which will not be an easy one. It will be complex, because the topics to be discussed are complex, but I am sure we will gather the capacity and the wisdom to reach solutions with the support of President Tabaré and President Rafael Correa. We will have good news for the people of Colombia and Venezuela, of South America and Latin America. Once more, the creation by the Hugo Chavez of UNASUR and CELAC are yielding results. I want to thank President Correa and thank President Tabaré and Santos as well for accepting the face-to-face meeting.
Pope Francis met Cuba's former leader Fidel Castro hours after warning Cubans to beware the dangers of ideology and the lure of selfishness as their country enters a new era of closer ties with the United States. The Pope and Fidel Castro discussed religion and world affairs at the home of the 89-year-old retired president for about 40 minutes. Many Cubans appreciate the Pope for his role in the secret talks that led to the new era of U.S.-Cuba relations. Francis will travel to Washington on Tuesday, where he is expected to meet with President Barack Obama and address both the U.S. Congress and the United Nations.
After the Mass, the Pope went back to the Vatican Embassy, and later he went with a small entourage to the residence of the commander, Fidel. He had a very familiar and informal meeting of more or less 30 or 40 minutes. The wife of the Comandante was present, with children and grandchildren. Obviously, the topics of the meeting were the main global topics of today's world and of the environment.
Pope Francis arrived at the Palace of the Revolution in Havana, where he was met by Cuba's President Raúl Castro. The meeting comes after the pontiff addressed crowds in the Cuban capital, urging political leaders to tread the path of peace and cooperation, and use the dent in the political stalemate between the US and Cuba as an example to the world. After meeting with the president, the Pope criticized the ills of Western capitalism. He specifically lashed out at the EU countries due to their apparent lack of interest in creating employment opportunities for the youth. Chile continues to be rocked by aftershocks following last week's 8.3 magnitude earthquake that sent tsunami waves pounding on coastal towns. After over 300 aftershocks have hit the country since, the last one just hours ago. It registered at 6.3 on the Richter scale. There were no reports of new victims or damages. The government updated its figures, saying that over 9,000 people are homeless, and the death toll now at 13. There are also 4 people still missing, and a total of 480 have been injured.
It had never happened before. It was the first time that a tsunami hit here. In the past, there were huge waves pelting the bank, but it was about 50 years ago.
Now a brief look at world news. Our correspondent in Gaza, Noor Harazin, tells us that the tensions between Palestine and Israel are again escalating. This after 3 rockets were allegedly fired into Israeli territory. On the ground, though, Palestinians fear this will spark a new, violent Israeli war on Gaza.
tension is rising again here in the Gaza Strip after the Israeli media reported that 3 rockets were fired last night towards the southern Israel, despite the fact that there were no injuries or damages. But the Palestinian people here in Gaza fear that these rockets will drag them to a new Israeli offensive, a new Israeli operation like what happened a year ago. At the same time, in the West Bank, the situation is escalating again after Israeli forces shot a young Palestinian boy, which started protests around different cities in the West Bank.
And now other stories making news around the globe.
Greek leftist Syriza party leader Alexis Tsipras stormed back into office with an unexpectedly decisive election victory. With almost 100% of the votes counted, Syriza claimed victory with 35.5% of the ballots. That gives them 145 seats in the 300-member parliament. Tsipras is to be sworn in shortly for a new 4-year mandate. He will have 48 hours to form a new government. The conservative New Democracy Party attained 28% of the vote and will hold 75 seats in parliament. Upon knowing of his victory, Tsipras vowed to steer the country's battered economy to recovery. We gave a tough and difficult battle, and I felt vindicated today because the Greek people gave us a clear mandate to continue fighting inside and outside the country and boost our people's pride. Austria will push very hard at Tuesday's EU Interior Ministers meeting in Brussels to introduce refugee quotas for a fairer distribution and to avoid asylum a la carte. This announcement was made by Interior Minister Johanna Milk-Lechner in Vienna. She said her government believes it is important to set quotas as a solution for what she called economic refugees. She also said that not all refugees arriving in Europe will receive asylum, and those who don't will be returned to their countries of origin. Close to 500,000 refugees have arrived in Europe so far this year.
I will continue to push very hard for a migrant quota to be introduced. The first step will be a redistribution of 120,000 refugees all over Europe. I'm fully convinced that this quota will be the beginning of the end of the asylum truck.
France wants European interior ministers in Brussels to address the most difficult aspects of the refugee crisis, which, according to President François Hollande, is the implementation of the bloc's border rules and the rights of the refugees themselves. The EU countries have expressed their differences regarding the influx of refugees, which today is considered the worst since World War II. Hollande says France is also in position to aid the countries that welcome refugees, but that cannot continue doing so for economic reasons.
Real Madrid star striker Cristiano Ronaldo made Zaid Mohsen's dream come true. Zaid, his father and a brother were kicked and tripped by a Hungarian camerawoman while they were chased by police near the Hungary-Serbia border. Zaid accompanied Ronaldo onto the pitch of Real Madrid's San Bernabeu stadium in their game against Granada. Zaid's father, Osama Abdul Mohsen, and his brother Mohammed Al-Ghadabi were brought to Spain by the Senafe School of Soccer. Osama was a first division coach in Syria and has been offered a coaching position with the Spanish team Getafe.
First, I thank you for all people. Next, all people look my people in Syria. I need help. Everybody in Syria need help. Please, please. Thank you. First day in Madrid is very fantastic. I very happy, very happy. Thank you for it.
Great success story, right? For more on these and other stories, please visit our website, telesurutv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Regan Devines. We'll have another newscast for you just after midday.